Thanks for staying with us on Doordarshan. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Well, government continues to firm up its COVID vaccine inoculation strategy. And also this is coming at a time when we are looking at another variant of the COVID-19 virus. Today, the government held a very comprehensive press conference which talked about the salient features of this particular virus, in fact, and the do's and don'ts and the multi-pronged strategy to basically contain the situation from here on. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and on News Night tonight, here are the headlines. Prime Minister's New Year gift to the nation. Prime Minister Modi inaugurates new Bhaupur-New Khurja section of Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor in UP. Says freight corridor will be significant for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Prime Minister says this day adds a new chapter to the glorious past of Indian Railways. Stresses on basic infrastructure should be devoid of politics. He lashes out at the earlier governments for delay in freight corridor projects. Amidst protest against farm laws by section of agitating farmers, next round of talks between government and agitating farmers on Wednesday. 4 issues on agenda to be taken up in a meeting at Delhi's Vigyan Bhavan at 2 p.m. Government reiterates its commitment and good intent to look for an amicable solution. Minor footprints of new strain of coronavirus in India. Samples of 6 passengers travelling from Britain to India found positive with new variant. Carriers of SARS-2 quarantined and their close contacts also isolated. Health Ministry sets up Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genome Consortium to conduct lab and epidemiological surveillance. Health Ministry assures vaccine will work on all variants of virus. Government firms up its COVID vaccine inoculation strategy beginning new year. 2 districts each of Punjab, Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat conclude their dry runs. Dry run exercises aimed at end-to-end testing of COVID-19 vaccination process. Government expresses satisfaction over the planning and preparedness as per the operational guidelines. Karnataka Legislative Council Deputy Chairman S.L. Dharmagowda found dead near a railway track in state's Chikmagaluru district. Police investigating the case. Political parties expressed shock. Dharmagowda came into the limelight when there was a ruckus reported between BJP and JDS and Congress members in the Karnataka Legislative Council about 2 weeks ago. Big development in Tamil Nadu politics. Superstar Rajinikanth announces he would be launching a political party issues 3-page letter citing health reasons. Hills of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand covered with white blanket of snow. Bone-chilling cold felt in the plains of North India. Delhi NCR in the group of cold wave with no respite from cold for next 2 days. Improvement in weather after 1st of January onwards. And in cricket, India wins the Melbourne Test against Australia, chasing 70-run target. Australia bowled out for 200 in their second innings. India level series 1-1 in the 4-match Test series. And now with the top stories in detail. In tandem with the government's focus on the 5 wheels of highways, railways, airways, waterways and highways strategy, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the new Bhaupur-New Khurja section and the Operation Control Centre of Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor. Calling infrastructure the biggest source of any nation's strength, Prime Minister said India is marching ahead to become new economic power for which connectivity is accorded highest priority. Here's a report.
का दिन भारतीय रेल के गौरवशाली अतीत को 21वीं सदी की नई पहचान देने वाला है। आज जब खुर्जा भाऊपर फ्रेट कॉरिडोर रूट पर जब पहली मालगाड़ी दौड़ी तो उसमें नए भारत की, आत्मनिर्भर भारत की गूंज और गर्जना स्पष्ट सुनाई दी।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the new Bhaupur-New Khurja section and the Operation Control Center of Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor on Tuesday through video conference. The Prime Minister said that infrastructure is the biggest source of any nation's strength. He added that as India is moving fast towards the path of becoming a big economic power, then the best connectivity is the priority of the country.
माल गाड़ियों के लिए बनी इस प्रकार की विशेष सुविधाओं से एक तो भारत में यात्री ट्रेन की लेट लतीफी समस्या कम होगी। दूसरा ये कि इससे मालगाड़ी की स्पीड भी 3 गुना से ज्यादा हो जाएगी और मालगाड़ियां पहले से 2 गुना तक सामान की ढुलाई कर पाएगी। हमारा सामान पहुंचाने का जो खर्च है वो कम होने के कारण सामान सस्ता होगा, जिसका हमारे निर्यात को लाभ होगा। यही नहीं, देश में उद्योग के लिए बेहतर माहौल बनेगा, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस बढ़ेगी, निवेश के लिए भारत और आकर्षक बनेगा। देश में रोजगार के, स्वरोजगार के अनेक नए अवसर भी तैयार होंगे।
Prime Minister added that Khisan Rail would be benefited due to this dedicated freight corridor. He said that farmers can send their produce through rail to any big markets across the country safely and at a low price.
किसान रेल से वैसे भी खेती से जुड़ी उपज को देश भर के बड़े बड़े बाजारों में सुरक्षित और कम कीमत पर पहुंचाना संभव हुआ है। अब नए फ्रेट कॉरिडोर में किसान रेल और भी तेजी से अपने गंतव्य पर पहुंचेगी।
Prime Minister lamented the huge delays in the past in implementation of the dedicated freight corridor project. He said that until the year 2014, not even a kilometer of track could be laid. He criticized the mentality of previous regimes that focused on increasing the number of trains rather than the tracks on which the train was to run. He said that not much investment was done on modernization of the rail network.
प्रगति की बैठकों में मैंने खुद इसकी मॉनिटरिंग की, इससे जुड़े स्टेक होल्डर से संवाद किया, समीक्षा की। केंद्र सरकार ने राज्य सरकारों से भी संपर्क बढ़ाया, उन्हें प्रेरित प्रोत्साहित किया। हम नई टेक्नोलॉजी भी लाए। इसी का परिणाम है कि करीब 1100 किलोमीटर का काम अगले कुछ महीनों में पूरा हो जाएगा। सोचिए, 8 साल में 1 भी किलोमीटर नहीं और 6-7 साल में 1100 किलोमीटर।
Prime Minister urged to keep the development of countries' infrastructure away from politics. He advised against damaging public property during demonstrations and movements.
हमें याद रखना चाहिए कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ये संपत्ति किसी नेता की, किसी दल की, किसी सरकार की नहीं है। ये संपत्ति देश की है, ये संपत्ति आपकी है, देश के नागरिकों की है। हमारे हर गरीब का, हर करदाता का, मध्यम वर्ग का, समाज के हर वर्ग का इसके पीछे पसीना लगा हुआ है, उसका पैसा लगा हुआ है। गरीब ने अपने पेट काट करके पैसा दिया है, तब सब बनता है। इसको लगने वाली हर चोट देश के गरीब, देश के सामान्य जन को चोट।
Prime Minister has said that reforms have been undertaken at every level in the railways, like cleanliness, improved food and drink and other facilities. He said that the government focused on widening and electrification of the rail network and elimination of unmanned rail crossings. He added that India is now building modern trains and exporting them too. With inputs from Sudhakar Das, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And the government has invited at least 40 protesting farmer unions for the next round of talks on Wednesday to iron out all contentious issues pertaining to farm laws earlier last week. Now, agitating farmers unions they've put forward proposal last week affirming their willingness for a dialogue with the government. More details in this report.
Many farmer delegations and organizations from across the nation continue to lend support to the new farm reform laws. Even as all-round support continues, the government is keen to engage with the agitating farmers. and the next round of talks between the government and farmers will be held on Wednesday. The government had on Monday invited 40 protesting farmer unions for the next round of talks on December 30th on all relevant issues. Agitating farmer unions made a proposal last week to hold the talks on December 29th. The government's invite followed the proposal made by the farmers. Agriculture Secretary Sanjay Agrawal invited the farmer unions for talks at 2 p.m. on December 30th, which will be held at Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi. The letter by the Agriculture Secretary says that the government is committed to finding a logical solution on all relevant issues with a clear intention and open mind. The talks will be held on all the 3 new reform laws, the issue of minimum support price, Commission for Air Quality Management in National Capital Region and Adjoining Areas Ordinance 2020, and the proposed Electricity Amendment Bill 2020. Government is hopeful that the talks will be productive.
निश्चित रूप से जो किसान संगठन आ रहे हैं उन पर हमें पूरा भरोसा है कि वो सकारात्मक सोच के साथ आएंगे और एक समाधान की ओर हम बढ़ पाएंगे। और निश्चित रूप से आज देश के अंदर करोड़ों करोड़ जो किसान हैं वो इस बिल का समर्थन कर रहे हैं, उनकी भावना को भी वो निश्चित रूप से समझेंगे, क्योंकि ये बिल है वो किसान को आज़ादी देने वाले बिल हैं। और इस जो एक लंबे समय से जो किसानों की जो आंदोलन है वो समाप्त होने की पूरी उम्मीद है हमें।
ये हमारे जो दोनों बिल हैं किसान के हित में है और उन्हें इतना भी विश्वास है कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के हाथों से कोई भी काम ऐसा नहीं हो सकता जो किसानों के खिलाफ जाए। इसमें उन्हें विश्वास है। कुछ गलतफहमियां, कुछ भ्रांतियां किसानों के दिल में है, मुझे विश्वास है कल उनका निराकरण भी हो जाएगा।
Many union ministers and the Prime Minister himself have repeatedly reiterated that the new farm reform laws are for the benefit of the farmers, and the centre has assured more than once that the government is ready to talk on any issues pertaining to the new laws. Meanwhile, the scene at Delhi borders remains the same, and as the mercury begins the winter slide, the inconvenience is only increasing manifold. Newsnight Desk, TD India.
Well, moving on, government has taken serious cognizance of the reports of mutant variant of SARS-CoV-2 virus reported from UK and put in place a proactive and preventive strategy to detect and contain the mutant variant. The Ministry of Health has also set up the Indian SARS-CoV Genome Consortium to conduct laboratory and epidemiological surveillance. Once genome sequencing data has been analyzed by the respective centres in respective states, it will be sent to the National Centre for Disease Control for further collation. We have this comprehensive report.
Amidst reports of new strain of coronavirus reaching India, respite in terms of downslide in cases has been reported. A quick look at the data released on Tuesday. The downward trend continues in daily cases. In the last 24 hours, 16,432 new cases have come to surface, lowest number of cases reported in recent times in a single day. The number of recoveries from infection has crossed 98 lakhs so far. According to Health Ministry, the country has reported a trend of sustained decrease in the number of active cases. India's total active cases has fallen further to 2,68,581. India's active caseload stood at 2.63% of total positive cases. Furthermore, 24,900 people recovered and were discharged in the last 24 hours. The total number of recovered cases has crossed the 98 lakh mark and stands at 98,07,569. The death rate has now shrunk to 1.44%, while rate of recovery has increased to 95.82%. In the last 24 hours, COVID-19 has claimed lives of 252 people. Amidst news of new strain of coronavirus, India has increased its level of surveillance to remain on high alert. According to Health Ministry, 6 passengers who travelled from Britain to India were found carriers of the new variant. They have been quarantined. Out of them, 3 samples were sent for testing in Bengaluru, 2 in Hyderabad and 1 in Pune lab. As stringent precautionary measure, government has also quarantined the close relatives of those infected with the new strain, and also the process of contact tracing of their co-passengers has been initiated. Around 33,000 passengers had arrived at various Indian airports from the United Kingdom between November 25th and December 23rd, of which 6 were carriers of the new strain. Temporary suspension of all flights coming from the UK with effect from midnight of 23rd December till 31st December 2020 has been announced by Civil Aviation Ministry. But there are indications that the ban might be extended looking at emergent situation.
I foresee a slight extension of the temporary suspension because we are getting the fuller picture of what has happened. I don't expect that extension to be a long or indefinite extension. I'm not going to put a figure on it, but the words I'm choosing will give you an idea. A slight extension, small extension of the temporary suspension.
Government has taken cognizance of the reports of mutant variant of SARS-CoV virus reported from the UK and put in place a proactive and preventive strategy to detect and contain the mutant variant. Ministry of Health has also set up Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium to conduct lab and epidemiological surveillance.
This particular virus strain may have its own run, and we have to be very, very careful, very careful.
On Tuesday, government made it very clear vaccine will be effective on even a new strain coming from the UK.
वैक्सीन्स जो हैं पाइपलाइन पे हमारे देश में और बाहर भी, ये इन वेरिएंट्स जो यूके में हैं और साउथ अफ्रीका में भी आए हैं, इनके अगेंस्ट काम करेगी. तो एक इम्पोर्टेंट अश्योरेंस है कि इस स्टेट पे वैक्सीन्स के बारे में फिक्र करने की अभी ज़रूरत नहीं है.
Meanwhile, India conducted a 2-day dry run for activities entailed in COVID-19 vaccination across 4 states, Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Punjab and Gujarat, on 28th and 29th December 2020. The dry run exercise is aimed at end-to-end testing of COVID-19 vaccination process and will include planning and preparations as per the operational guidelines. The objective of dry run is also to undertake and confirm field implementation of IT platform CoWIN and guide way forward. Prior to the actual implementation, specific teams were formed for various tasks by the district administration, and activities like uploading of dummy beneficiaries' data, session site creation, vaccine allocation, communication vaccination detail to vaccinators and beneficiaries, beneficiary mobilization were carried out.
The concerned government department is fully in control of this, and the transportation, which is, as Secretary said, a multimodal exercise, the civil aviation component will certainly undertake the tasks assigned to it.
The 2-day end-to-end dry run was undertaken in Krishna district in Andhra Pradesh, Rajkot and Gandhinagar in Gujarat, Ludhiana and Shahid Bhagat Singh Nagar in Punjab, Sonitpur and Nalbari district in Assam. Detailed insights and feedback so obtained will help enrich the operational guidelines and IT platform and will strengthen the COVID-19 vaccination rollout plan. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
So the Health Ministry has confirmed that India has detected at least 6 cases of the recently discovered UK variant of COVID-19. Now, the ministry states that all 6 carriers of the new mutant strain had recently returned from UK. The Health Ministry has also set up, this is very important, Indian SARS-CoV Genomics Consortium to conduct lab and epidemiological surveillance. Once genome sequencing data has been analyzed by the respective centers in the states, it will be then sent to the National Center for Disease Control or NCDC for further collation of these samples. And now let's take a detailed look at this new strain of coronavirus. What is it all about? So basically a quick fact file check. Now, according to the Health Ministry, 8 of 17 changes in parts were found which codes for spike protein. Now, what are these 2 changes? Change number 1. The N501Y increases affinity for ACE2 receptors. Therefore, an ACE2 receptor is used for viral entry into human cells. And the other change is that N501Y is also linked earlier to the increased ineffectivity. Change number 2 is N501 is linked to transmission in animal models as well. The other change is the other strain, that is P681H. It actually promotes entry into susceptible cells. And according to the Health Ministry presser today, there was a detailed presentation also, remember. This P681H increases transmission in animal models of infection. Now, important, how do we combat this? What is the future strategy as far as the government is concerned? Setting up of Indian SARS-CoV Genomics Consortium. What is this going to do? This consortium is going to conduct laboratory and epidemiological surveillance very, very aggressively. Now, post-genome sequencing data is analyzed by the centers in states, and after this data is analyzed by respective centers in the states, this data will be further sent to National Center for Disease Control for further collation of data. Now, let's move on and talk about the new strain combat strategy. Remember, we do not have to get complacent. Now, Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium has been, remember we talked about it, has been set up to deal with the situation. Testing, sequencing of samples from international travelers has been also firmed up. Testing, sequencing of samples across the country is also that is being firmed up by the government. Testing, sequencing of samples of all those who are being admitted to hospital is also what the government is going to do, or perhaps is doing as we speak. Now, we have to reduce the transmission through physical distancing. So basically, more and more physical distancing in COVID protocol needs to be followed up. Follow public health measures, very, very important, which basically includes your masking, your hand washing, frequent hand washing. This is must. Also, amplification of testing, tracking and isolation is also what we are looking at. We don't have to let our guards down. We have to continue doing that. And most importantly, the government is also seeking your cooperation, your help in terms of vaccine rollout. That is very, very important. Remember, roughly 33,000 passengers had arrived at various Indian airports from United Kingdom between November 25th and December 23rd, stating that of the samples were collected from these returnees, out of which 114 had tested positive for just COVID-19. Overall, remember, the numbers have come down as far as the transmission rate is concerned. The recovery rate has gone up. But the positive samples of those 6 passengers, the carriers, were sent to regional laboratories around the country for the genome sequencing. Now, as a part of the government's enhanced surveillance and testing procedures, states will now be playing once again a very, very proactive role. They will have to send 5% of all coronavirus positive samples to these laboratories for genome sequencing. So very clear, the focus now shifts to genome sequencing exercise also to identify whether the novel strain has spread or not. We are going to take a short break. When we come back after the break, we talk about tackling this new strain of virus. Remember, we have a very eminent panel. Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India is going to join us on the show, along with Director Ames on News Night tonight. So don't go away.
कोरोना की वैक्सीन को ढूंढ रहा जग सारा, जब तक इसकी खोज पूरी है पैगाम हमारा। कोरोना की वैक्सीन को ढूंढ रहा जग सारा, जब तक इसकी खोज पूरी है पैगाम हमारा। जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं। खुद को इससे दूर है रखना, सोच समझ कर खुद है परखना। भीड़ भाड़ हो कम या ज्यादा, मास्क सदा चेहरे पे रखना। कोरोना की वैक्सीन को ढूंढ रहा जग सारा, जब तक इसकी खोज पूरी है पैगाम हमारा। जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं। ओ आपस में 2 गज की दूरी रखनी है इस समय जरूरी, ओ ध्यान रहे हमेशा चाहे जो भी हो मजबूरी। ओ आपस में 2 गज की दूरी रखनी है इस समय जरूरी, ओ ध्यान रहे हमेशा चाहे जो भी हो मजबूरी। कोरोना की वैक्सीन को ढूंढ रहा जग सारा, जब तक इसकी खोज पूरी है पैगाम हमारा।
Thanks for staying with us on Newsnight. So in focus tonight on Newsnight, we talk about tackling new strain of coronavirus. Dr. Randeep Guleria, Director AIMS, is with us on this panel, and also very glad to have Professor Dr. Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Extremely eminent panel today. I'm going to, in fact, thank you very much, sirs, for joining us. I'm going to, in fact, quickly come to you first, Dr. Raghavan. In fact, you conducted that along with others, of course, Secretary Health and Mr. Paul, along with others. You conducted a very, very comprehensive presser today, and the detailed presentation, if you could, simply basically oversimplify it for the viewers about this new strain. How serious could be the situation, and what all do we know about this strain, the new mutant strain?
Thank you very much. Actually, what you have done before the break is to summarize everything so well, and you made our job certainly easier in conveying this. Now, first of all, some assurance. While this new variant is transmitted more rapidly, we should not, so far there's no indication at all that there will be problems in the vaccines working against it. So most vaccines target the spike protein, which is on the cover of the virus, and the spike protein is used by the virus to enter into our cells. And there are changes in these spike proteins, as you said. But these changes are so focused that the vaccines, which look at the entire components of this spike protein, will still be able to act on this. So the changes in variants are not sufficient to make the vaccines ineffective. That's the first point.
Okay.
Now the second point for us, our viewers, to keep in mind is that there are important changes in the variants which make the affinity of the virus to its entry receptor in our cells stronger, and others which have been shown in other systems, like you said, in animal models, to increase infectivity. These are in laboratory conditions. But very, very importantly, these laboratory conditions are, they have to be tested on the field for them to have validity. And on the field, the UK variant is much more transmissible and already taken over 70% of the kinds of variants available there in the London and surrounding area. So this is really increasing transmissibility, though not severity of disease.
Okay, Dr. Guleria, what is the greater concern now? Containing the transmissibility, though we are also, there's a sense of assurance that is also coming from Health Ministry, because the strategy to deal with the situation next year seems to be in place. But for a common man, for a layman to understand, how do we up our game?
I think it's important to understand that the first important thing is that, as has already been said, it increases the chance of transmission. As far as the new variant is concerned, it is not associated with increased hospitalization or increased mortality. So that also is a reassuring factor. The important thing is that we need to be extra careful, both in seeing that this variant doesn't enter our country in a big way, we are able to contain that, and we prevent the transmission of this variant in our society or in our community. To do that, we have to really be able to identify those individuals who have this variant and isolate them, do a very aggressive testing and tracking, and at the same time, our basic non-pharmacological methods, wearing a mask, maintaining physical distancing, regular hand washing, become all the more important, because the transmission of this virus is from human to human. And if we are able to prevent the transmission, then we will be able to prevent the increasing number of cases that have been reported in other parts of the world. So I think till we are able to vaccinate a large number of people, COVID appropriate behavior in terms of wearing a mask, in terms of physical distancing, avoid creating crowds or going to crowded places, and regular hand washing become very, very important. Because if we do this, we will be able to prevent a large spread of the virus as far as the country is concerned. At the same time, as has already been done, we have now the India SARS Genomic Consortium that will continue to do a surveillance by looking at 5% of samples so that we pick up any variant that happens in our country. At the same time, we will also have clinical surveillance epidemiological surveillance, so that if there is an increase in number of cases any part of our country, it becomes a red flag, and we are able to test the samples from that area to see whether there's any variant developing in that area, and we can develop containment strategy as far as that area is concerned. So I think we have a very comprehensive plan in place, but then it needs cooperation for everyone to make sure that the gains that India has achieved over the last few months in terms of bringing our cases down, our case fatality is down, our recovery rate is high, we continue to maintain that as we enter the new year.
Is it a severe variant, sir? Because there are a lot of questions now that are coming to people's mind. You know, we have our regular phone-in Doctor Speak show, and now the questions people want to know, callers want to know: are we looking at an unknown situation in terms of symptoms? Is this virus mutating regularly, or we don't really need to get alarmed that much? Dr. Raghavan.
Well, you know, viruses, as they spread in the population, as with any biological organism, they will mutate. And that is perfectly normal. And most mutations don't affect the virus and make it worse or better. They are just markers of its passage through time and space. Sometimes what happens is that some changes make the virus, as in this case, have greater affinity for the cells it infects, and therefore increases its transmissibility. Other kinds of changes can happen, and those changes can happen on top of these changes or separately. It's important to keep in mind that this is not some magical thing which has happened, but this has happened because of the virus infecting a large number of people all over the world, that these kinds of small, rare changes can be detected. And it's to the credit of science that the increased transmission in London area has been attributed to this and discovered so rapidly. And therefore we can check that this variant doesn't spread elsewhere. So this is very, very important. But as Dr. Paul said in today's press briefing, there are a large number of people who are exposed to the virus all over the world, and new variants can arise from anywhere, including India. And those variants may be similar to this, may be different, and that's why the national sequencing effort will take care and make sure that we can identify them in advance and check their properties.
You talk about national sequencing. I'm going to come to Dr. Guleria in a bit, because the national sequencing and this consortium, and now it's also one thing is very clear, Dr. Raghavan, that the focus is now shift to genome sequencing. Well, it could be a very technical biological term, laboratory term, but for the general viewer to really understand, how is the government going to go about it? Dr. Raghavan.
Sorry, yes, I thought you were asking Dr. Guleria. My apologies. So, you know, we have the Department of Biotechnology, the Indian Council for Medical Research, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, other government agencies. All these have got extraordinary gene sequencing technologies and capabilities. This national consortium is getting together all of this so that in every state, depending on the intensity of spread, we can take samples and sequence them. So the idea is to look at positive cases in these states and sequence initially as many of those samples which are connected to entry from Europe in general and London in particular, but also samples within to see what kinds of other variants and this variant may be there. So this is going to be invaluable.
Okay, Dr. Guleria, now coming to you, nothing has changed in the sense we don't have to get complacent. New variant or no variant? The government says amplify, tracking, testing. So that continues. That continues.
Correct. So I think it's important to understand a few more facts. One is that it's not that this variant is going to create some new symptoms. The clinical manifestation remain the same. Our basic testing will continue to be the same as far as RT-PCR is concerned, or that other testing that we do using TrueNat or CBNat. And also our basic premise of doing a lot of testing, tracking, containing and treating will be the same. But we need to be more vigilant. We need to be more proactive, because we don't want that we are complacent and we have a surge in the number of cases, especially now that we are seeing a very good declining trend. Therefore, I think the message here is that we know that there is a variant. we need to be proactive so that we don't allow it to cause a surge in the number of cases. But our basic philosophy remains the same. At the same time, this is also a sort of a signal to us that this virus can and will continue to mutate, and like it mutated in UK, it could also mutate in India, and therefore we should pick it up early so that we can take proactive action. And that is why we have this India SARS genomic consortium, which will actually be able to take samples from all over the country. 5% of samples will be taken. It will be a lot of surveillance, and the genetic mutation that occurs will be correlated with clinical, epidemiological, and mortality data. So we'll come to know whether any mutation is causing a change in the virus, which needs attention from the epidemiology point of view, from a treatment strategy point of view, even from the vaccine point of view. So this is a move forward in terms of being more proactive and making sure that we are able to prevent the virus from spreading, and we take actions as the virus changes so that we are not caught off guard.
Dr. Guleria, we were not really caught off guard in March, though, but our COVID lab testing infrastructure was not that robust. But since March and today, fag end of December 2020, sir, we really have in place a very robust laboratory infrastructure. I'm talking about COVID-19. And now when you're talking, the focus now is completely shifted to the new variant as well. Would you say, Dr. Guleria, that we are better equipped to deal with the situation now?
Oh, definitely. We are much better equipped. When we started off in March, we were, in terms of, we were not very well aware of what COVID-19 is all about, how the virus will behave, how to treat it, what are the symptoms. And we were preparing ourselves both in terms of testing, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of having the equipment, whether it's PPE, N95 or ventilators. Now we know much more about this virus. Science has advanced a lot, and we have strategies in place. But as the virus evolves and mutates, we have to keep changing and having our strategy to sort of counter that. And the Genomic Consortium is one such strategy. And I feel this is a very good move, not only now, but in the long run, because we need to have facilities for sequencing the virus as it evolves. And that will give us a lot of information of how we will change our treatment strategy, even later on, not even now, but months later. If there has to be certain other mutations that we have to look out for, we will have now a network in place in our country, which would be very useful in the long run. So I think we don't need to really get panicky. We have to be more vigilant. We have to have a plan in place, but we are in a much better position. And I think we are confident that this can be dealt with because of what we have done in the last 10, 11 months. And if we move forward aggressively, I think we will not have that much of a problem.
Yes. Okay, and Dr. Raghavan, your word, we don't need to get panic. That's very important. Everybody is now talking about the new variant. There seems to be a sense that this new mutant variant is more severe than COVID-19. There would be now a lot of myths also associated. What would be your 5-point, very, very specific do's and don'ts specifically when we talk about this new variant?
First of all, this is still the SARS coronavirus 2. It's not a new virus. It's the same virus. These are changes in the virus which makes it transmit faster. It doesn't change the fundamental properties of the virus. And therefore, when you have more cases, you will have more issues with those cases. But it's not that each infection is any different from the other. So that's the good side of it. Second point is, it's also the good side that, the vaccines which are being rolled out now, which will be rolled out in India very, very soon, they will also be effective against this variant. These are the two important points. Now, the third point is that because it transmits more, the only immediate measures over the period of time when the entire population of our country and indeed the world is vaccinated is to adopt mechanisms which distance the virus from each infected person to the next person it can possibly do that. In fact, that means masks are becoming more and more important, and distancing is becoming very important, and hygiene, cleaning surfaces, and so on. So all this takes an added value. Okay. So that's the fourth point over there. Yeah, and so these are important issues which we need to keep in mind.
Yes, Dr. Guleria, your quick 4 points. We have to be, okay, can I use the word, let's get a little more aggressive when it comes to masking, physical distancing and frequent hand washing and the other points that Dr. Raghavan talked about. Let's not be complicit.
I would totally agree with that. We need not be complicit. We need to now, at this point in time when vaccine is just around the corner, become more aggressive so that we don't allow this new strain to really take a hold in our country, and we prevent the chain of transmission. Once we have the vaccine being rolled out in the next few months, we will be in a much better position as far as containment of the infection is concerned. Till then, our basic principles that we've been following for the last few months still have to be done aggressively. I do understand that there is a little bit of what we call COVID fatigue, both in healthcare workers and in the general population. But this is the time that we really need to push ourselves, because we really reached the last mile of our struggle. And I think if we are able to really overcome that, this variant will not cause much of a problem. We are very vigilant. We are monitoring things, but there has to be a movement in terms of citizens and the public to make sure that they do their part so that this doesn't spread in our country in a big way.
So there's a lot of forward planning already in place to deal with this new variant. Dr. Guleria and Dr. Raghavan, thank you so much, sirs, for joining us on News Night tonight. Really glad and honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And now let's move on and talk about the other stories, especially this one coming in from down south. A 3-page letter that he is pulling back because of health reasons coming from Tamil superstar Rajinikanth created ripples in the political domain down south in Tamil Nadu, grabbed headlines and came at a time when Tamil Nadu is already gearing up for upcoming polls, leading to a lot of speculations. Here's a report.
Tamil Nadu is preparing for the upcoming polls with political parties, including Kamal Hassan's new outfit, putting their shoulders to the wheel, campaigning as well as reaching out to the people. But fans of Tamil superstar Rajinikanth were in for a disappointment when Talaivar announced in a 3-page letter that he is pulling back because of health reasons.
So it's not a big loss for us because we are already 40 years we are followers. Again we will follow him. If he is good and well, his health condition is well, so we are happy because we want to. We are not seeing him as a human. For me, I am seeing him as a god.
Rajinikanth's announcement on 3rd of December that he would enter the political arena with a new party raised expectations. On December 31st, he was about to make a formal announcement about his party. But before that, Rajinikanth shared a 3-page letter via Twitter. He wrote, "The reason for all this is my physical condition. I see this as a warning given to me by the Lord. So with great grief, I have to announce that I will not start the political party or enter politics. Only I know the pain of making this decision. This decision will disappoint Rajini fans and the people who were looking forward to the launching of the party. I am sorry. I bow my head for the love and affection you have for me. RMM will function as usual. I will do what I can to serve the people without getting into electoral politics. I have never hesitated to speak the truth, and I sincerely request the fans and the people of Tamil Nadu who love truth and transparency, who care about my well-being, who love me and live for me, and the people of Tamil Nadu to accept this decision of mine." Rajinikanth has had a kidney transplant and is on immunosuppressant drugs. He cited this as a matter of concern. With the coronavirus pandemic, meeting people exposes him to risk of infection. Recently, while he was shooting in Hyderabad, he had to be hospitalized because of unstable blood pressure. Though he tested negative for COVID-19 on his release, his doctors advised him to put his health first and avoid any exposure to COVID-19. With this turn of events, Tamil Nadu politics remains the poorer, though some political parties in the state may be heaving a sigh of relief. With input from Philip Matthews in Chennai, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Moving on, Karnataka Legislative Council Deputy Chairman S.L. Dharmagowda was found dead near a railway track in state's Chikmagaluru district on Tuesday morning. The police is investigating the case while JDS alleges conspiracy behind Dharmagowda's death. Here's a report.
Karnataka Legislative Council Deputy Chairman S.L. Dharmegowda was found dead near a railway track in state's Chikkamangaluru district on Tuesday morning. It is feared that he committed suicide. It is being told that on Monday night he left his farmhouse, but he did not return home. When his family members started looking for him, they found his body on a railway track at Gunasagar. The body was then brought to the district hospital in Shimoga for post-mortem. Police is investigating the case. Karnataka Home Minister Basavaraja Bommai has assured proper action in the matter.
He has committed suicide, and everything is now known to everybody. We'll take the appropriate steps regarding the entire episode.
Chief Minister B.S. Yedurappa expressed his deep grief over the death of Dharmegowda. He tweeted, "I pray to God to give strength to his family and fans. Om Shanti." Former Prime Minister and JDS leader H.D. Devegowda expressed sorrow over his demise. Gowda said that he was a quiet and gentle man. This is a loss for the state. At the same time, former Karnataka Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy alleged conspiracy behind the demise. BJP and Congress have also expressed grief over the death.
धर्मेगौड़ा जी का जाना एक बहुत बड़ी क्षति है। एक बहुत विद्वान, एक बहुत समर्पित कार्यकर्ता और ऐसा व्यक्ति जो हर समय कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, संविधान, नियम और लेजिस्लेटिव के लिए खड़ा रहा। भारतीय जनता पार्टी और व्यक्तिगत मेरे लिए भी एक बड़ा स्तब्ध करने वाला समाचार है, बड़ा दुखद समाचार है।
वो एक नया युवा नेता थे जनता पार्टी के और बहुत ही सज्जन आदमी था। पॉलिटिक्स अलग बात है, लेकिन व्यक्तिगत वो अच्छा एक आदमी था। ऐसे एक युवक को हम खो लिए हैं, इससे बड़ा हमको दुख होता है।
Dharmegowda came into the limelight when there was a ruckus between BJP, JDS and Congress members in the Karnataka Legislative Council about 2 weeks ago. Congress members had also pushed Dharmegowda and forcibly pulled him out of the chair. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now news on weather front. Hills of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand covered with white blanket of snow. Bone-chilling cold felt in the plains of North India, while Delhi NCR is in the grip of cold wave with no respite from cold wave for the next 2 days. Improvement is expected after 1st of January.
Snowflakes falling down on the hills as if an early welcome to 2021. Whether it be Jammu and Kashmir or Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand, there was heavy snowfall in the hilly areas of these states, and this led to visible excitement among tourists. Jammu Kashmir is all covered with snow for miles and miles at many places. Fresh snowfall has been reported in several areas of Kashmir Valley. Snowfall is continuing since Monday in Srinagar as well as other higher reaches of the valley. Roads are covered with a thick blanket of snow. Mercury has reached 0 degrees in Srinagar as well as other areas. While several districts in Jammu region are also witnessing snowfall. Snowfall in Patnitop in Udhampur district has meant instant joy and fun for the tourists. Several tourists are heading to Patnitop to catch a glimpse of white blanket of snow and enjoy snowfall. Struck by the COVID pandemic, the snow is becoming like a soothing blanket for the local tourism industry at many places.
यहाँ का वेदर स्नोफॉल हो रही है, बहुत अच्छी वेदर एंजॉय कर रहे हैं।
न्यू ईयर को सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए यहाँ पे भरपूर स्नोफॉल हो रही है।
In Himachal Pradesh, snowfall has been witnessed in several areas. Season's first snowfall has been reported in Shimla. Due to the snowfall, several areas saw cars and people stranded. Heavy snowfall was also seen in Dharamshala as well, which lifted the spirits of the tourists.
बहुत ही अच्छी कल बर्फबारी हुई है। सुबह बिल्कुल मौसम साफ था और अभी हम सुबह उठ के आए तो एकदम यहाँ सब कुछ सफेद हो रखा है। इतने ज़्यादा हम मजे कर रहे हैं पूरी फैमिली के साथ।
The snowfall in the hills has led to cold wave intensifying in several areas of North India. Bone-chilling cold has arrived in Delhi NCR. Delhi was enveloped in fog on Tuesday morning and the misery was compounded due to blowing cold winds. Met Office says that cold wave is continuing in national capital Delhi and cold wave conditions will persist for the next 2 days. It is expected that weather will improve from 1st January and temperature can rise marginally thereafter.
दिल्ली में और एनसीआर में हवा बनी हुई है, साथ ही साथ जो पंजाब, हरियाणा और जो वेस्ट यूपी के इलाके हैं वहाँ पर भी कोल्ड वेव की स्थिति बनी हुई है। तो 31 तारीख की सवेरे तक हमारे पास कोल्ड वेव की सिचुएशन बनी रहेगी। 1 तारीख से हल्के हल्के इसमें इम्प्रूवमेंट आना शुरू होगा।
In Uttar Pradesh, biting cold wave is reported in several districts. In view of northerly, intensified cold winds, Tuesday saw a drop in the minimum and maximum temperatures in most of the places in Rajasthan also, while at some places, minimum temperature was reported to reach the freezing point and even dipped further to minus. The cold wave persisting in several parts of Haryana and Punjab intensified on Tuesday. Fog at several places led to a dip in the visibility levels. Met Office has predicted intensification of cold in both these states for the next 2 days. That means biting cold will remain in North India as we usher in the new year. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Well, let's move on to some cricket news. Good news coming in there. India beat Australia by 8 wickets and with a day to spare in the second test match in Melbourne to level the format series at 1-all. Australia were bowled out for 200 early on the 4th day, leaving India needing only 70 to win at the MCG. India managed to get the runs needed in 15.5 overs despite losing 2 early wickets. A 51-run stand between Ajkiya Rahane and Shubham Gill ensured the visitors got home comfortably.
Hungry for redemption, India recorded a win for ages under inspirational Ajkiya Rahane, beating Australia by 8 wickets in the second test to level 4-match series 1-1 in Melbourne on Tuesday. Despite a minor wobble, India chased down the target with 8 wickets to spare after Australia were bowled out for 200. At lunch on 4th day of the second test, it was India's chance to complete a statement win, and they did just that as Shubman Gill and captain Ajkiya Rahane closed the match out. In the second innings, Jasprit Bumrah 2 for 54 in 27 overs and debutant Mohammad Siraj 3 for 37 in 21.3 overs were both fast and accurate during an intriguing as well as classical test match session. They accounted for 3 wickets, remaining patient and not trying to too many things on a flat deck. Ravichandran Ashwin 2 for 71 in 37.1 over got the final wicket, and Ravindra Jadeja 2 for 28 in 14 overs made up for an injured Umesh Yadav's absence during another splendid bowling performance.
I think this will go down in the annals of Indian cricket, world cricket, as one of the great comebacks, in the history of the game. To be rolled over for 36 and then 3 days later to get up and be ready to punch was outstanding. I think the boys deserve all the credit for the character they showed, real character.
Victory felt like a formality in the second session for Rahane's men. 10 days after the Adelaide debacle where they were bowled out for their lowest test score of 36. The context adds to the brilliance of this win as India won at MCG for the second consecutive series. It was at this venue that India created history in 2018 by winning the test and clinching a series in Australia for the first time. With this win, India moved up to 4 wins at MCG, the most at a venue for them in Australia. And with 4 wins, MCG now moves up to top of the list for venues where India have won most matches away from home. Meanwhile, Ajkiya Rahane maintains 100% record as captain. India have won each of the 3 tests under Rahane. Now Australia will sweat over their batting problems going into the next test. Their total of 200 in the second innings is their highest in this series so far, and the top order has appeared extremely tentative, and their best batsman Steve Smith, who is number 1 in the ICC men's test ranking for batting, has managed only 10 runs in 4 innings. Sports Desk, DD India.
And Indian cricket team's coach Ravi Shastri feels that Ajkiya Rahane's century was the turning point of the game.
I think it was the innings of Ajkiya Rahane. The discipline, this on such a big stage in a massive arena, come as captain of the team, bat at number 4, when he went out to bat, we were 2 down 60, and then to bat 6 hours on probably the toughest day to bat because it was overcast all day, the sun never came out, and he batted for 6 hours, unbelievable concentration. I thought that was the turning point. His innings was the turning point.
Ravi Shastri was also really impressed with the performance of Shubham Gill and Mohammad Siraj in their first test. He said they represent the new India.
I mean, that's the kind of brand of cricket we've been playing, for the last 3 or 4 years. And, when you saw these 2 debutants, show that kind of maturity and flair and discipline. It was great to see because, like you mentioned, today Siraj's effort was outstanding. Actually, he might not have the numbers to show for it, but the discipline and the ability to bowl long spells, the maturity he showed for someone playing his first Test match, and in doing the job that he had to do once we lost Umesh, who was not on the field, was outstanding. And then Shubman going and playing with that kind of flair later on was great to see.
Quickly on to some international news. Russia's prison service on December 29 gave Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny a last-minute ultimatum to fly back from Germany at once and reported a Moscow office early on December 30th morning. The ultimatum says he would be jailed if he returns after this deadline. Navalny, one of the President Vladimir Putin's leading critics, was airlifted to Germany for treatment in August after collapsing on a plane. Germany and other Western nations said it was an attempt to murder him with a Novichok nerve agent. Russia has said it has seen no evidence that he was poisoned. More world update. Burkina Faso's President Roch Kabore vowed to unite his country as he was sworn in for the second term. Escalating Islamist militancy has drawn the once stable West African nation into the turbulence of the wider Sahel region, and more than 2,000 people were killed in Burkina Faso this year in attacks by insurgents linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Ethnic and religious tensions fueled by the militant attacks have also increased, pulling at the seams of once peaceful communities. A second group of Rohingya Muslim refugees disembarked onto a low-lying island in Bay of Bengal on 29th of December to start a new life there despite opposition from right groups worried about the new site's vulnerability to storms. The Bangladesh Navy took 1,804 Rohingya to the island in 5 ships, with the refugees sitting on wooden benches on deck. The UN says it has not been involved in their relocation but urged the government to ensure no refugee is forced to move to Basanchar Island, which only emerged from the sea 20 years ago. The government says the relocation is voluntary, but some refugees from the first group have spoken about being coerced to go. More world news. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres sent a message of healing to the world for 2021, a year he hoped will bring rays of hope. At his New Year's message, Guterres says that that the world should work in unity and solidarity against the backdrop of a year dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the persistent suffering and grief it has brought with it. He said, and I quote, "If we work together in unity and solidarity, these rays of hope can reach around the world," unquote. French designer Ferricade, who upended fashion styles in 1960s and 70s with futuristic looks, has died at the age of 98. France's Fine Arts Academy said in a statement on Twitter. Khan was born in Italy in 1922 but emigrated to France as a small child, died in hospital in Neuilly in the west of Paris. He was known for overhauling the fashion industry by successfully licensing his brand name and making business moves, big business moves. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Newsnight. Till we meet again, namaskar.